We're going to turn now to politics, where Hillary Clinton is being forced to answer more questions about her past email practices after the FBI uncovered nearly 15,000 previously undisclosed emails and other documents from her tenure as Secretary of State. A federal judge is now ordering in an expedited fashion the State Department to review those documents and so release them to the public. Clinton, in fact, spoke about this development in an interview last night with Jimmy Kimmel as her Republican rival. Meanwhile, went on the attack in Ohio.
The State Department, I actually added it up today, and the State Department said that they have to release 15,000 emails by the deadline is a couple of days before the debate. Are you concerned about that?
No. I mean,
I would be terrified if my emails were released.
But, I mean, Jimmy, my emails are so boring.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm embarrassed about that. They're so boring. And so we've already released, I don't know, 30,000 plus. So what's a few more?
Now we learn about another 15,000 emails she failed to turn over, and they've just been discovered, I guess, today. And don't forget the 33,000 emails she's already deleted. Colin Powell just proved again how dishonest Hillary Clinton is after he busted her for trying to pin the email scandal on him. One more Hillary Clinton lie.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump is also calling for a special prosecutor now to investigate the Clinton Foundation in the wake of this latest email revelation. And just this morning, he tweeted, and I quote, as you can see here, Hillary Clinton strongly stated that there was absolutely no connection between her private work and that of the State Department. Lie, exclamation point, end quote. To discuss it all, Politico national politics reporter and on the mound, Irvine Uni High's single-season wins leader, Eli Stokols, good enough to join us from the Politico newsroom there in Arlington. Eli, the scandal really that just won't quit, if you'll forgive me, that a new chapter has been written as the FBI has uncovered these 15,000 or so emails, other documents, and they're set to be released shortly before the November election. Clinton has previously said that her attorneys went through everything, but that seems to be, at this point, inaccurate, if not also untrue. Regardless, though, the optics are how damning?
Well, I mean, this is a problem for her. I mean, this is, there's the reality and then there is the political reality. We may not know the reality until October or sometime after that, and really, reality these days is all sort of in the eye of the beholder in this election. And so, for Trump supporters, obviously, they believe that there is something very nefarious about all this. For Clinton's supporters, they think this is a big joke and that this is really just Republicans trying to gin up fear and hammer away at Clinton's negatives. But the fact is that the problem that most swing voters have with her is on the trustworthy question. And, the idea that there are more deleted emails. I mean, from what we've seen of these emails so far, donors are asking for things, and Huma Abedin is referring them mostly to go through official channels. And so at this point, there doesn't seem to be anything that any direct link between donors, using Clinton to get things while she was Secretary of State. But the fact that we don't know that for sure and that it's murky, that's a problem. And it is something that Donald Trump, if he stays on message, can start to hit her on, can try and put her on her heels on defense. And that is, for Republicans, a positive change of direction in sort of the trajectory of the campaign and his messaging. The question is, whether he's able to score points on this or whether she's able to, answer this perhaps in the debates directly and explain this in a way that satisfies a lot of those swing voters.
Well, a big if, a few big ifs, in fact, for the GOP nominee. But with regard then to what you just said there, the direct addressing of this issue, in the Democratic nominee, she has not held an official news conference in almost 9 months. She then decides to essentially yuck this up on late night television. Do you think this was a good idea?
Well, some people will have a problem with that. But, I think in this sort of media environment, when you're on a show like Jimmy Kimmel and you get asked about this, the best thing, you can't ignore it. You have to just sort of, talk about it, maybe try and, use some levity to be dismissive about it. I don't think she really misplayed anything last night addressing it in the way she did on Kimmel. But, and whether or not people care that she hasn't held a press conference, again, Donald Trump has banned a lot of outlets, including ours, from even covering his campaign. And it doesn't seem to engender a ton of sympathy from voters for the press. I mean, that just does not really exist. And so complaining about Hillary Clinton not having a press conference is probably not the best line of attack against her, although it does sort of play into this notion that some people have with Hillary Clinton that she's not the most transparent, that there may be something to hide. I think the fact that she doesn't feel more compelled to have a press conference and to sort of put this line of attack away, to take it away from Donald Trump by just sort of sitting there and answering a lot of questions, is the state of the race right now. She can play it safe. She can sort of endure these attacks about not having press conferences because right now she's sitting on a very comfortable lead, and until he changes that, she really won't be feeling a whole lot of pressure.
We're also seeing then another line of attack by Donald Trump, and it's as we see this new layer added to an email controversy that becomes increasingly really difficult to parse, but it is the attack on the nominee in so much as calling for a special prosecutor now to investigate the Clinton Foundation, accused of receiving donations again from foreign benefactors. Took shots at the federal government, though, in fact, saying very specifically it couldn't be trusted to handle such matters. What do you make of that?
Well, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, whatever happens, Donald Trump is basically saying, kind of like he says the election is rigged. He's saying, oh, there can be an investigation, or maybe there won't be, or whatever. But, at the end of the day, it's all because the federal government is incompetent. It's of a piece with his overarching message, which is that the institution of American government is broken. It's not working. And for people who are frustrated, those lines and those, arguments will resonate. The question is he speaking beyond his base of supporters from the primary? A lot of people, may not necessarily sit there and nod their heads at everything he says about, this is all rigged, this is all, a big scam. And I think the other part of it is, for Donald Trump talking about a special prosecutor, the Clintons have always benefited from having people come after them who go just a little bit too far. And so I think, he needs to make sure that his argument against her and whatever he's calling for is credible and does not go too far. I mean, this is a candidate, to put it mildly, who has been prone to hyperbole and overstatement and embellishment. And so, a lot of people may think that a special prosecutor is warranted, but I think a lot also may want to wait and see what is in these emails before believing that that's really necessary. I mean, the FBI, just sort of closed this case. Mm-hmm. Trump will say, well, that's because it's all rigged and it's, an inside game as well. But again, this is just another case where, people sort of see what they want to see in these current events. You mentioned Donald Trump and certainly his relationship with his base. A cornerstone of his campaign from the day that he announced was his very hardline stance regarding immigration. We have now seen in the last 72 hours or so a seeming shift from that hardline stance. He has since said he's not flip-flopping. He said he wants a policy that's firm and fair. He wants to respect the existing laws that have worked well for Presidents Bush and Obama prior to him. So he seems to be existing in all parts of this issue now. Can he afford, though, to shift too far from, again, a stance that has been the absolute essence of his campaign to this point? I don't know. I think that a lot of his base voters will forgive that, honestly, if he's able to, shift somewhat. And that will take, a level of political dexterity that maybe we haven't really seen from him to this point. I mean, it is an untenable position to call for building a border wall and deporting 11 million undocumented immigrants. That's a great position in a Republican primary, as we saw, but it is not a tenable position to win a general election, and that explains his terrible numbers with Hispanic voters. It's important that he finds some way to sort of soften that position, but he really has put himself in a box because everybody identifies him with his position, very hardline position on immigration reform. Kellyanne Conway, his new campaign manager, said on Sunday, this is going to be Immigration Week. He's going to go out west. He's going to give a speech. And then suddenly yesterday they were canceling all of these campaign events that were on the schedule. She said, well, I inherited a bad schedule. I needed to do some pruning. But I think the reality is that they need more time to figure out how to do this because it is not an easy task to try and take a position that is sort of synonymous with who Trump is as a politician and his candidacy and his appeal to Republican primary voters and to tweak that in any way that is believable to general election voters and to the base voters who, believe and want him to build a wall. I mean, he said last night, I'm going to build a wall, and people will sit there and say, yeah, he meant it. And so he really is in a box, and I think it's going to be a very, difficult maneuver to get out of it.
Eli Stokoe still a fireballer to the last, my friend.
You went deep Google on that. Thanks, man.